If you have seen one of my last videos, you know that I have said this. I would like to show you my games, but that would be too much for this video. If you want to see the games, let me know in the comments. So in this video I will show you my games. The first one I made was Sliding Cube by following the beginner tutorial from Brekkies. This is the main menu. Spoiler, the main menus won't improve a lot in between my games. They always look really bad. Anyway, I finished the whole base game in one weekend. At that point the game had 3 levels. After that I first added level 4 and 5. Then in the next update I added level 6 to 10. And then for some reason I added one last level. Anyway, this is what the game looks like. It's very basic. There is not a lot to talk about with this game, other than the fact that the controls are absolutely horrible. Obviously you have to avoid touching the red blocks. And that's about it. I tried to keep the levels somewhat interesting with the limited skill set I had at that point. Levels 1 to 4 are pretty basic. However, level 5 brings 2 new things with it. These flat pieces and these green blocks. The idea of the green blocks is to help you jump over the flat pieces. Then we have level 6 where I made the level really narrow. Level 7 where the camera stays still. Level 8, well, this one is interesting. I think that I tried to replicate these door levels from Fall Guys. You know, where one of the doors opens and the other ones don't. But I quickly realized that doesn't really make sense for a runner game where you can't go backwards. So I just made all of the doors open. Anyway, this is probably the hardest level in the entire game. The first 3 walls are totally doable, but the last one, which looks different for some reason, is the hardest one. And you can actually see the reason for that flying through the air. With that I mean these red blocks that fall from the sky. Do you wanna know why they do that? It's because after the last wall I placed one block and duplicated it a bunch. So there are a lot of blocks in the same physical place, and when the level loads, they explode everywhere. I think that was a mistake on my end. I think that I actually wanted to continue building the level after the last wall. But I forgot about that, and when I playtested the level, I noticed these flying blocks and decided, for whatever reason, that I should keep that in the game. But as you can see, I'm amazing at my own game and was able to take this pro shortcut. Anyway, after that there's level 9, which is just a normal level with hyperspeed. Level 10, where you actually have to make these pro moves around the walls. And then there is level 11, which is probably my most hated one. And that's it for Sliding Cube. After that game, I started making my most complicated project of them all. But before I finished that, I actually started and finished a different small project. But I actually can't show you that one. But I can tell you what it is. It's the worst copy of Space Invaders you have ever seen. Why can't I show you this one? Well, it's because I straight up ripped all the sprites from the original game, since I only made this game for myself to practice game development. Anyway, after Space Invaders I made this game, Red Spikes. I don't know why, but I had a lot of trouble with the UI on this one. And that's why the menu looks even worse than the previous one. I know that for some reason the position of the buttons and the icons would change drastically between me testing the game in Unity and me testing the game after actually exporting it as an exe file. By the way, if you're wondering why it says beta up here, I actually planned on making this game way bigger. It was supposed to be a full-on dungeon crawler, but that never happened. Anyway, if you're wondering what the options are, there are none. I don't know why I even bothered implementing this button. Anyway, let's go into the actual game. It looks absolutely terrible, but as far as mechanics go, this one is pretty impressive. We have randomly spawning enemies, we have different types of enemies, we have health, ammo, score and high score, random gold drops, and a shop with different buffs and abilities. We have double points, a speed potion, a health potion, an item that makes the enemies spawn slower, and an item that gives you unlimited ammo for a short amount of time. And that's basically it. The next game I made was again a copy of another game, Tetris. This one actually turned out pretty good, but to be fair, the bar for a Tetris game turning out okay is really low. But again, I can't show you this game either. Anyway, the next game I made was actually kinda special, because the next game was for my very first game jam. If you don't know what the Game Jam is, that's a competition where a lot of game developers participate to try and make a game based on a theme. The time frame usually goes from one weekend to one whole week, depending on the jam. The Game Jam I wanted to participate in was Ludum Dare 53, which has a 72-hour time limit. The theme for the Game Jam was delivery. So I went with the obvious solution and made a pizza delivery game. This was the first time I tried making my own music with Bosca with this program. Honestly, I've made some okay tracks for my standards at least. Have a listen. Anyway, but for this game I wasn't able to make anything good. So I just made a very short track with some simple drums and made it loop. Again, terrible menu and even more terrible name. But at least the game looks... never mind. The game looks terrible as well. By the way, here's the track I made for the game. Well, at least it fits the game. And now on to my last game until today. This was again for a Game Jam. This time it was Ludum Dare 54. The theme was way more interesting this time. Limited space. With this one I almost didn't make the game at all. I had an interesting idea, but I wasn't motivated to make it. After I had spent 2 of the 3 days of the jam not making anything, I talked with one of my friends about my idea and he actually motivated me to make the game. So on the last day, in 6 hours, I made this game, Safe Space. Honestly, while playing through this game for this video, I realized that the concept was actually kinda interesting. However, like all my games, the visuals in this game are really bad. The main idea was this. You have to make space on the company PC by deleting old files. But you have to make sure you don't delete the files your colleagues still need. You can make 3 mistakes before you lose. Unless you delete one of the files the boss needs. In that case, it's an instant game over for you. At the beginning of every level, there are some post-its on the worst picture of a pinboard I could have picked, and you have 10 seconds to memorize all the instructions before you are thrown onto the desktop. Which looks... meh. And yeah, that's the game. Actually, that's all the games. What do you think? Where would you rank my games on a scale from horrible to bad? Anyway, that's everything for now. If you enjoyed this video for some reason, please consider leaving a like. Until we meet again, bye bye.